Wanted to relate a couple of stories with you on risk, and we may have discussed a little bit about this before. Um, we've talked about transferring risk with insurance and mitigating risk by planning. Well, there are positive aspects of risk too. You might have an exploit, and that's a positive risk that a project wants to take advantage of. Another thing to do is a positive risk with an organization or other projects. That's a share, and that's sharing a positive risk. These are the three positive ones that we hadn't covered in other portions of risk. You might enhance, if you see that word, besides your transfer and avoid and ignore and all that, you've got the exploit, share, and enhance. And enhance is something you do to ensure that the positive risk will likely happen. Now, I want to talk to you about two stories of risk from just in my life. And we talked about you were planning a party and it was going to rain. Well, we had commencement at Vanderbilt and it rained. And the plan was that we would move to Memorial Gym. But the sheets of paper, when they took the sheets of paper that had all the list of everybody that was going to graduate, they lost one of the sheets with all the students. As they walked across the stage, they read their names. Ross Perot was a presidential candidate, multimillionaire that ran and got a decent percentage of the vote. He was there to see his grandson graduate at Vanderbilt, to walk across the stage and have his name called out. And when his grandson walked across the stage, they didn't call out his name because they didn't have that sheet. The woman in charge of planning the risk mitigation for commencement was fired on the spot. You need to plan for risk. What they do now is they have a guy that speaks 8 languages and he can pronounce everybody's name, and they have digital copies that went everywhere. Now, is that fair because it's more digitally enhanced than it was back years before that? Probably not. But realize that's what's going to happen should you mess up, mega mess up. I tell my students, if you make an order of magnitude error on an answer, I'm not going to give you partial credit. You're not going to do that. If you would get fired at work, you're not going to get partial credit for an answer. I was on Metro Nashville SWAT team for 16 years out of my 31 years there, and we would mitigate the risk. We would have a team of negotiators. We called them mouth Marines. And they would talk to people and try to get them. And they really helped a lot because they got people to come out, and we didn't have to go in and forcibly remove people or use chemical irritants to force them out of a building, or distraction devices, stun grenades, to distract people while we took guns out of their hands. We would mitigate risk by a lot of training. So I was very comfortable with the people I worked with. And you work with people so much that you know who it is coming down the hall just from hearing them walk. That's when you know you've really worked a lot with the people. I was on what was called the entry team, and we would divide the team in half, the entry team in half, while the negotiators, the mouth Marines, are talking to this person. We'd have half the team ready to go in case the situation deteriorated and people started being killed inside or something, because it's usually a hostage situation when we were called. And there are other situations where we would break the team in half, and we would practice. Half the team was ready to go instantly, and the other half was finding a a similar layout apartment, or we chalk out in the road and practice room entry and how we would clear and move through a building. And we do that for several hours while the negotiators were talking to this person. So once we felt we were up to speed, we'd swap those halves, and one would give them a chance to rest and a chance to move and work. And it mitigated the risk, because what you had is you'd have a practice response to a situation. And thus, you have to think about, if I'm going to have a chemical spill at work, if I'm going to have a computer, if I'm having a computer ransomware attack or some type of cyber attack, you need to prepare for those things. How do you shut down things? How do you isolate the infected computers? How do you get up to speed if your whole company lasts? And that's one of the things you need to do. You need to practice to mitigate your risk.